ECDL Advanced, Excel, Lesson 57, Advanced Filtering. We are currently looking through Section 12 on lists. We've already covered lists, filtering lists, autofilter and custom autofilter, and now we're going to look at advanced filtering. Now I'm going to go through my preamble now. If you have difficulty understanding the preamble, don't worry too much, because hopefully it will become quite clear once we go through the manoeuvres section where we're going through the practice. Okay. To search a list for more complex criteria, for example matching information from two fields rather than one, advanced filter can be used. This involves setting up a criteria range in a separate range of cells, normally to the top or right of the list. The criteria range consists of at least two rows, the first row being the column headings for the list, and then one or more rows directly underneath to enter the selection criteria. Once this has been set up, then the list can be filtered. A criteria range can also be arranged to combine two searches by placing information on the same row, which would be the same as a Boolean AND, or on two rows, which would be an OR. If the same name is required for an AND combination, the field name must be duplicated. Okay, so let's start with the workbook entitled Sick. To create a criteria range, copy the fields A6 to D6 and paste these cells to start in A1. As an aside, copying the field names results in fewer mistakes being made than by typing. Also, copying all the names means that other filters can be performed using the same range. So in this case, even though initially we're only going to be using some of these column headings for the advanced filter, even so I've included all of them so I can use this as a template for further advanced filters. To set up a search for all the staff in administration with less than 5 days absence, under Department, in row 2, enter the word administration, and again I'm going to copy and paste. So I'm finding the word administration, copying it and pasting it just to make sure that I've not made a spelling mistake. And under absent, so in cell D2, put in less than 5. This that I have highlighted now is the criteria range. It's A1 to D2. As I said before, the criteria range must be at least one column and two rows. The first row will contain the field names in any order, and the other rows will contain the required selection criteria for the filter. So the criteria range is now set up for the filtering to take place. So if we select a cell in the main list, any cell, and then in the Data tab, which I already have selected, in the Sort and Filter section, click the Advanced button. The list range has automatically been defined and is correct. That's A6 to D29. If we click in the criteria range box and then select, so I'm selecting, and then select the criteria range, which is A1 to D2, leave the other options as they are, and then click OK to filter the list in place. And as can be seen, this has filtered all those employees who are in the administration department and whose absences have been less than 5 days. To return to the full list, use the clear button that's up here. Next, let's try another AND filter by clearing row 2 and entering new search criteria. So in this case, I'm going to pick anybody whose surname begins with a B. So I'm using the star as a wildcard. That was Shift 8. And I want the absences to be greater than 0. Now, as I look down the surnames, I can only see 2 that begin with a B. There's J. Borland and also N. Barrett. Now, J. Borland, absences was 0. For N. Barrett, absences were 7, which was greater than 0. So when I perform this advanced filter, I should end up with just one record, and that will be for N. Barrett. Okay, so let's try that out. Select a cell in the main list. Make sure you have the Data tab selected. Click the Advanced button from the Sort and Filter group. We now have the list range set up, and I'm just checking the criteria range is set correctly as A1 to D2. At that point, press OK, and here we go. We have what we expected, which is N. Barrett, who was the only person whose surname began with a B and whose absences were greater than 0. Press Clear to return to the full list. Okay, if you close this workbook without saving, and then open the workbook which is entitled Invoices. To filter the list using the invoice and amount fields, copy just these 2 field names from row 5 to A1 and B1. So all we're looking for is invoice in A1 and amount in B1. To find invoice numbers that are less than 170 and amounts of more than £1,000 excluding VAT, under invoice enter less than 170, and in amount greater than 1,000. As before, select a cell in the list and then click the Advanced button. Again, you'll find that within the Data tab under Sort and Filter. Click in the criteria range and select the range A1 to B2 on the worksheet. Click OK, and this will filter the list. If you've done this correctly, there should be only one record, which is for J. Jones, whose invoice number is less than 170 and where the amount was greater than 1,000. OK, click the Clear button to remove the filter. The last example was of an AND search, because we wanted to filter those records where the invoice number was less than 170 and the amount was greater than 1,000. Now we're going to look at how to use an OR function. So this time we're going to find the invoices that are dated before the 1st of January 2007 or totals over 750. So therefore we need an OR search. Delete the range A1 to B2 and create the following criteria range. In A1 we're looking for date. In B1 we're going to be looking through total. for the date, I want it to be less than the 1st of January 2007. And for the total, now this time it's an OR, so it's going to go on the next row. For total, I want the total to be greater than 750. Now we're going to do an advanced filter. So again, click within the list. Make sure you're on the Data tab. In the Sort and Filter section, click Advanced. This time, for the criteria range, we want to set it as A1 to B3. This will include the extra row. If we then press OK, it will display the matching records. There should be 6 altogether, and for all these 6, you're going to find that either the date is less than the 1st of January 2007, or the total is greater than 750. Click on a cell in the list, and then click Clear. Next, delete the data from the range A1 to B3. And we're now going to look at a more difficult search that would involve, for example, amounts between £300 and £500. And when I say amounts, I mean those values that exclude VAT. This time, this is an AND search, so it's going to be on the same line, but the field name has to be given twice. So let's create the criteria range. In A1, put in the word amount, and in B1, also put in the word amount. Now, we want the amount to be greater than 300, and also we want the amount to be less than 500. Let's use the advanced filter to display the matching records. Click in the list, Data tab, Advanced. We want the criteria range to be A1 to B2, and then press OK. We should find there's 3 matching records, and these are the only 3 records for which the amount, that's this column here, was between 300 and 500, bigger than £300 but less than £500. Okay, as before, let's remove the filter by pressing Clear. Delete the data from the range A1 to B2, and then leave the workbook invoices open for the next lesson. Okay, a wonderful feature, advanced filtering. I'm sure you'll be making good use of this technique in the future, and I look forward to seeing you next time when we're going to be discussing extracting filtered data. Okay, I look forward to seeing you then.